Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine. It's great to be back with you. Hello, Alexander Holland.
Hello, John Maloney.
Now, those of you who listen or watch the show will recognize that we have some big news. I particularly have some big news, and we'll get to that later in the show. But we're very committed to the themes of the show, and they don't include my newborn child. But they do include...
Well, they do. It's just not a priority.
It's just not a priority.
As I kept screaming at you down the phone.
But they do include how technology is changing culture, and we have to down tools. Like all good journalists, we have to put aside our personal preferences and our personal relationships. And
That's
I've
right.
just
Walter Cronkite didn't come on and go,
exactly,
guys, I've got a new baby. He would have
Here's
been out
my
on his
grandchild.
ass. He didn't.
He had a job to do.
Yeah. He wasn't sort of delivering you information about the Vietnam War and then just saying but saying, "Oh, guys, I know the Vietnam War is really heating up."
Yeah.
I hope I've got my timeline there. I'm pretty sure Walter Cronkite was alive during the Vietnam War.
Think so. Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
He wasn't coming on and saying, "Guys, we have to put down what's been happening with the Viet Cong because I've had my sixth child." That's not what
exactly. Never mind. Robert Kennedy Sr. getting assassinated. I want to introduce you to my fourth grandchild. And in that spirit, I hastily handed off my beloved new daughter to Jacinta and said, I've got to get on the blower. There's been some big news in the tech world. And that world has been set aflame this evening by what seems to be the actual coming into effect of the TikTok ban.
Yes,
so just
exactly.
as we're coming on, just as we've turned on our equipment this evening, I'm getting a spate of stories emerging on my Instagram, and you can see it on X. You can start to see it on YouTube. People basically emigres from the sinking ship of TikTok saying, look, here's what I get when I try to log into TikTok. And it's like it indicates, we'll come to what it actually says, but it indicates that they can't use it anymore at the moment, at least, which is amazing. I think a lot of people never believed, they believed somehow this wouldn't actually happen.
Yeah, I never thought it would happen. And we will get to your exciting life news at the end of the show, John. We had a long discussion about this where there was a compromise made by me where I said, fine, we can talk about it at the end of the show.
At the end,
and all the news, and then it's a good structural trick as well with the open loop of if you want that, because everybody's going to want to hear about it, and so now you have to sucked in. Now you have to stick around and listen to TikTok shit for like the first 30 minutes. But it has happened. They have banned TikTok in the United States. 170 million to 180 US million to the American users are the estimates I've seen. And I, very much like you and everybody else, I just thought it was all hot air because this kind of stuff gets floated all the time. And when has this ever happened? I wrote on LinkedIn, my favorite social media platform, last week. I was asking people if there's any even remote equivalent, and everybody said no. This is the most popular, most culturally relevant online platform that has ever been banned in the United States. To take 180, I mean, think of the cultural impact of TikTok, and for Americans to wake up this morning, and I sent you the. So first of all, it's working for us, and I knew that would be the case because that's what the media had reported. It's not a international ban on the TikTok app, but so it works for me. I open it and it all looks fine.
Yeah,
but if you're in America at the moment and you open the app, then you see a message that says, I'm looking at it right here. It says, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted by the US. Unfortunately, this means you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. And this is hot off the press, everybody. This has only happened basically last night, Saturday night US. When I went to bed, TikTok was functioning.
General Kroll.
Well, it is quite strange because, I mean, I guess we'll get to this, but it is one of the criticisms of TikTok's appeals to the American justice system is the fact that the Chinese government do not extend the same rights, or you can't appeal to the same sentiment in President Xi. You can't go,
No.
oh, President Xi, come on, there should be freedom of speech laws that allow us
rule of
there should
law.
be-
And he goes, mate, where do you think you are?
But yeah, 170 million US users, and they wake up this morning, and it's because Congress passed the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act last year, which was upheld last week, and so they had a deadline of January 19th, which is today.
Yeah.
And nobody was quite sure what was going to happen. People were speculating that all that would happen is that TikTok would they would perform their duties as dictated in the act itself, and all that meant was that the app couldn't be on the app stores anymore. It couldn't be on the App Store or on the Google Play Store, and the app could no longer receive updates, which would render it useless over time. That's what people thought. But then it seems as though they've done a little bit of a move to put pressure on lawmakers by actually making the thing disappear, because you can imagine the kind of instant impact that rug pull is going to have on not just people who love using the the app, but businesses that rely on it for their money, for their income as well.
And directly saying, just a reminder, not in so many words, but just a reminder, everyone, Trump has promised to fix this. Basically, like, if you don't like this, then, leave the flaming dog turd on his doorstep.
Yeah.
So it's quite a clever move. But just to put that in perspective, so I've just looked it up, and there are, according to evoca.tv, there's, as of 2025, 68.7 million people in the United States are subscribed to cable TV. So this is like 2.5 times that many people just being unable to use a particular medium. Basically, it's like it's 2.5 times as big as saying to people, okay, next week there's going to be no more cable, which is would just be mental. And like, yes, there are other apps, but still the number of people using it is huge. And as you say, it's not just a case of people going, oh, I can't watch Skibbity Toilet remixes. It's people who are going, I can't make a living anymore. And, like I've been using, I was looking at it after your, may I say, very well done solo performance last week on Don't Praise the Machine, when I was absent attending to my non-podcasting duties. And, people obviously make money through a variety of channels. They sell merch, they get on.
Yeah.
There's like a creator service that I think ByteDance offers that funds certain people, maybe not very lucratively, but they get some from that. They get some from, sponsored content or affiliate links or whatever. And all of those people, I've seen them in recent days because they've also got a presence on other apps, and some of them I will follow, saying, oh, we support the TikTok ban being repealed or not coming into effect. But the thing is, it was a kind of a whimper, because I think until kind of the last few days, until you basically were talking about, the January, what was it? January, wouldn't have been January 19th, but January, well, that's today, but January.
I think it was the 9th that I think it was the 9th that they said this is being upheld.
This is actually happening. And until then, I think people were like, yeah, that's just bullshit. Surely they can't do that. So they kind of got their act together very hastily and said, oh, here's why it shouldn't be banned. And it was too late.
I haven't seen a single post supporting it on TikTok, which is interesting. And I'm sure there's a handful of them, because I know that opinion that the Chinese government is both spying on Americans and also potentially influencing them by the kind of content that is served through TikTok. I have heard that argument made quite strongly on some other podcasts that I listen to.
Hmm.
But you can imagine if you tried to make that argument on TikTok, it probably wouldn't go too far. Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, he is a bit of an outlier in that he does not support the ban, and he thinks that it's a free speech issue. He's hanging with the kids, and he's saying I don't like this dusty old decision that's been made by dusty old men. An interesting thing caused the act to be voted through unanimously last year. I don't know if you've read about this, but essentially what happened was the ban was being proposed, and then in order to get Congress on board, what they did was they said, okay, everybody come into this secret room, and the national security apparatus is going to show you a special slideshow presentation, a little bit of a fun PowerPoint where we're going to explain to you why this is a national security risk.
Yeah.
And so everybody went into the secret meeting that they weren't allowed to discuss. And I think at the time, there were some people there were more people who in US Congress who were not in support of the ban. And then they all came out of this meeting and unanimously voted to ban it. But we can't know what it is that they saw.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, exactly. Weapons of mass destruction. And
I
so...
mean, what's interesting is that the people that it brings together, both for and against. And at a future episode, I'm sure we'll talk about the upcoming proposed social media bans in Australia, which are kind of similar in that they've brought in, sort of strange bedfellows, both for and against. But, I mean, you mentioned Rand Paul, famously a kind of libertarian candidate, but AOC, who's probably more of a socialist, has also voted against the ban and came out today explaining why she thought that it was basically a kind of Band-Aid solution and blah, blah, blah. And we should be making, her argument was that our data is being misused or potentially misused by our own government.
Totally.
And that's really the issue. And we can't just play this endless whack-a-mole game of selecting specific social media platforms that we've decided pose a risk and then banning them. Well, but they wouldn't agree on too much, I wouldn't think. So there you go.
I think the most interesting thing to come out of the ban in the last week has been, let's say Generation Z, but Generation TikTok, as TikTok generally, the entire platform essentially, from what I can see, is against the ban, as one could expect. But there is also, I think it also plays into this narrative that we've been observing over the last few years, where the kind of control that governments have over the populace and the general narrative that kind of trickles down to the people. And you can think about something like the Vietnam War, maybe, where there's definitely protest movements and things like this, but it really is starting to feel as though these online social media platforms are allowing for a kind of critique and distrust of government, which is very quickly mobilized and includes like millions of people from around the world. And it does seem it's just something new, because you have all these kids that, the Democrats and the Republicans really need to have on side, much like McDonald's needs to get kids eating cheeseburgers young so they keep eating cheeseburgers to the grave because of those cheeseburgers in many cases.
Yeah.
But if you look at TikTok, all the Gen Zers, instead of the Gen Zers having this kind of like chuggy boomer protectionist kind of mindset where they're like, yeah, that's probably right. The government probably is correct to ban TikTok because it probably is spying on us. They've all just gone like, well, no, fuck you. Like, why is you and Mark Zuckerberg at Meta having all of our data? Why is that somehow preferable to the Chinese government? Like, why should I explain to me? Yeah, like I'm a 5-year-old. Explain to me why my data is better. I'm better being spied on by you than I am the Chinese Communist Party, because we all know that our data is just everywhere.
Yeah.
So why are you better than them? And everybody on TikTok is just like, fuck the US government. And now what's been happening, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the app that everybody's been switching to called REDNote. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
And is this just like, so yeah, I don't know much about it yet, except I've seen a couple of memes, but is this just kind of a deliberate kind of fuck you to the US government where they're just like, you know what, we're going to subscribe to an even more compromised, even more CCP app?
Correct. Yeah. It's like total internet culture. It's just a total troll. And it's just like, and it's basically saying, it's almost like, I hadn't thought of this, but it's almost like, I can't believe that the US government didn't think of this, as in, what if everybody goes and starts using REDNote? Like then they have to pass the REDNote Act, and then they have to, and then everybody will just go to and then Xi Jinping can just keep making apps for everybody to monkey bar swing to every time a new act is enabled. And so
everyone
it's just,
they'll all have social credit scores, and and they'll eventually they'll just defect to China. It'll just be
this is the other interesting thing that's happened, is that everybody went to REDNote as a bit of a fuck you to the US government. But then an unintended consequence of that is that people started seeing the kind of content that people were posting on REDNote. And it's a little bit like, I think, when Tucker Carlson went to Russia and said all the groceries here are really cheap. There's probably that's great, but it's probably a slightly more complicated story than that. But at the moment, you're not seeing the complicated story. So what's happening is everybody who's going on REDNote is saying, there's all these lovely Chinese people on here who are welcoming us over to REDNote, and I'm watching their videos. The ones that are getting all the media attention are called grocery hauls. I think particularly for Americans are now seeing Chinese people go to the grocery store and get like a trolley full of groceries for 15 USD, and they're being told that Chinese people have free healthcare. Yeah. I think a lot of Americans, a lot of like fat, sick Americans with no money who are really poor and who are being told who have been told their whole lives that American exceptionalism is undisputed. Yeah. And now they're questioning and going, well, hang on, why? Okay, maybe there's some more governmental controls in China. Yeah. But I think a lot of people are probably thinking, well, okay, so maybe I can't slag off the government, but I don't have to live in poverty and be sick and die. Yeah. This is a trade that at least needs to be discussed.
We need to assess the pros and cons here.
Yeah, and people are, and there's all these conspiracy theories now on TikTok that people are saying the reason that they want to ban TikTok is not because it's a national security threat and because we're being spied on. It's because America does not want us to see how awesome China is. Like, they don't want us to see how this collectivist, communist, like half capitalist, half communist nation, powerful nation has has cyberpunk cities, and everybody's just having a trolley full of groceries for $15, and there's no homelessness, and there's no like rampant crime and drug use. So what's happened here? Why are you telling me I'm free? Great, but I got people dying from fentanyl deaths on my doorstep. Another slightly complicated part of that story. All the fentanyl. Where's all the fentanyl coming from in the United States? It's all coming from China.
Interesting.
John, have you tried fentanyl?
Well, I was recently in the maternity ward, as you know, and I did have a go at some opioids just to see, just as a last hurrah. When Sint was in labor, I thought, well, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. So
yeah, of course.
Had some Fenty. Is that what they call it? And
big Fent.
Big Fent.
Big Fent.
And the nurse came in and said, "Are you ready to meet your new baby?" And I said, "I'm Fenting in here. I'm Fented up."
You just said, "Can you just put on the doors? I want to break on through the other side." just nodding out as they try and pass your daughter. You're just going, not Father's Day. Back, but yeah. So what's going to happen with Talk?
It is interesting
happen with
that
Talk?
I didn't realize that whole thing about it kind of backfiring into a kind of dissent is really fascinating. That people are going. It's like, people in North Korea saying, hang on, you told us everywhere else was a fucking barbarian wasteland.
Totally.
And we see this footage of people who are, well fed and whatever. But and similarly, like there would be people, like obviously, that the story in China is extremely complicated, and there's Uyghur concentration camps and all this sort of thing. But
yeah, fuck, I forgot about them. They've been out of the news for so long. I forgot.
Yeah, they're still there. But if you said to someone, there'd be a lot of Americans who might have been fed this very one-dimensional view that everyone there is kind of living in an Orwellian nightmare, and then they're like,
yeah, that's
hang
exactly.
on, Shanghai looks pretty sick. Like that's
and not
really
just Shanghai,
fitting.
but that future punk, that cyberpunk city that I forget the name of, that everybody wants to go to now because it just looks like everybody's Blade Runner dream. I have just sent you, John. I'll bring this up on the screen because the TikTok that I've sent you is a news story from the last few days. Yeah. And if you just bring that up and watch it, and I'll bring it up on the screen, this explains exactly what I was just talking about.
I'm already learning over there. I don't feel no type of way about the TikTok ban. I'm already a Chinese citizen. I'm trying to get up in there. They already done lied and tricked us, telling us China did this, China did that. We walked over there. China said, hey, y'all. They was over there like, let me teach y'all my language so y'all can get into it. Now I was a little nervous at first, but now we all on Shahan Shul. We all over there on that REDNote app. It's real cool over there.
She's the voice of a generation. There you go. That's great. Fascinating. Yeah, the other thing I saw was I don't know if it was real or not, but I've seen that I get the impression that there's some resistance from some Chinese people who are kind of a bit anti-American. Who are like, who are all these fucking people coming in and ruining REDNote? And this woman posted this thing about, like, it was kind of broken English, so it was, it was kind of particularly direct and abusive, and I'm not sure if she meant to be, but it was like, who are these like obese, promiscuous people? Because it was just all Americans on REDNote all of a sudden. One of the things that people have been talking about in the context of, again, something we'll come back to, which is the Australian social media attempts to kind of clamp down on young people accessing social media, is that companies like ByteDance obviously have their, what's good for everyone apps like TikTok, but they've also got something, I think it's called Douyin in China, which is apparently much more kind of constructive and friendly for young people. And there's lots of content on there about, maths and science and educational content. So it'd be interesting too for people to kind of get into those apps that are not really, I assume they're available to at least in most cases to an international audience, but
that's a good question.
They're not really for them.
No, and TikTok is not available in China. So this is the other thing, is that they get Douyin. Douyin is their version of TikTok, and it is this app that promotes the kind of values that the Chinese Communist Party wants their young people to be exposed to, whereas TikTok is just Ice Spice, and she's just shaking that thing and talking about farting, and
I love how they don't have it in China. It's like not getting high on your own supply. It's like this is all the brain rot for you people, so that we'll outthink you in 50 years time, because you'll all be just TikTok adult morons.
The podcast that I was listening to, which is called All In, and they're they're tech bros, and they're very pro the ban, and they said just, if you just want to understand what's the psyop that's going on in China, just understand that their two biggest exports to the United States are TikTok and fentanyl.
Wow. Yeah. There you go. That's exactly the kind of playbook, isn't it? Just kind of rotting their enemies from the inside out.
Body and mind.
Yeah, exactly. But now it's backfired for them too, because everyone's gone, give me some. Everyone will be learning Mandarin and doing algebra.
And then maybe the game plan is that once the Chinese invade the US, everybody will just happily roll over because they'll go, we've been waiting for you to come and take this shithole over because I got Fenty freak zombies just like shitting in my yard.
Yeah.
And I would love free healthcare and €15 grocery cart full of sweet shopping. And I don't want to be violently assaulted, and I don't want all my drug stores to just be raided. I don't want my steak to be behind lock and key. Why can't I get toothpaste from the supermarket anymore without having to call the assistant over to unlock the shelf?
Yeah. And how come my toothpaste has corn syrup in it? That wouldn't fly in China.
Why am I so fat and sick? But of course, the other thing that complicates this is that all the people on TikTok think that it's not. They think that it's about controlling the message because basically American exceptionalism has failed, and the US government is telling people that the sky is red when it's blue, like saying, look how amazing we are, and people are walking out onto their streets and just going, what the fuck is happening here? Like, this is why is my town a tent city now? This doesn't seem like a great time. And then the other thing is, of course, they're all saying that it's not a good look that Mark Zuckerberg and Meta spent millions of dollars lobbying Congress and doing secret campaigns to undermine TikTok in the media because obviously they have a huge commercial interest in TikTok being shut down because everybody will just go over to their platforms. And so now everybody on TikTok is saying, well, this isn't about protecting us. It isn't about espionage or influence. It's about Mark Zuckerberg paying people off in the government to lobby, and he's lobbying to have the government ban TikTok so that he can just make more sweet money and have more power. And that's the other reason as well why everybody went to REDNote, is because everybody was like, we're absolutely not going to Instagram because it's Mark. It's Mark that's done this. Yeah. Don't trust him with his cool hair on Rogan and his chains.
Exactly. I don't care how broccoli his hair gets. But I saw as well, this was a couple of hours ago, there's something circulating on Instagram, which is basically a kind of week-long Meta boycott. So 19th to the 26th, which I assume is kind of linked to, the 19th is the consequential date of the TikTok ban coming into effect. And so I think it's a kind of retaliation, saying like, you're trying to get us to flock back to your crummy, American infiltrated programs and flat platforms, and we're not going to do it. But of course, it only goes for a week because everyone thinks, well, I can't be off social media for more than a week or I'll get the shakes. So they have to keep it within reason. But also people, it's funny how quickly, I remember I watched this video last night. This guy was saying, look, I agree that, Zucker's a bit of a dodgeball and that everyone's annoyed with him for valid reasons. But if we don't use Meta, then how are we going to get, informed about current affairs? How are we going to know what's going on in Israel or in Ukraine? And it's kind of like, well, there are other ways to find this information out. But obviously everyone it was indicative of how dependent everyone has become on those channels, especially young people, as a source, not just of social connection, but of, getting informed, that they actually kind of think, well, if I'm not on here, am I going to just like miss major events that are going on in the world?
Because this is the only place that I get my information from. I can't even read a news website, let alone a news paper.
Exactly.
I don't understand. When I open a news website, I actually literally don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. I have to read these paragraphs. There's like 8 of them. Just give
Reading.
me a 10-second clip, please.
Well, Trump comes in today. So Trump has said, he
Oh.
told NBC News he was considering an option to extend the deadlines. And he has said, the 90-day extension is something that will most likely be done. He said, if I decide to do that, I'll probably announce it Monday. So yeah, if he's going to do it tomorrow, he's going to come and say 90-day extension, and then the app pops back on for 90 days while they keep chatting about it. So this is the other big news: is your president again, John, is Donald Trump.
Yeah,
as of right
that's
now.
Why,
no tick. What a
that's why
what
I
a
gave
day.
my daughter's middle name to him, as you discussed last week. Kerfuffle Trump Maloney.
What a beautiful, beautiful girl's name. I can imagine her in politics. Kerfuffle Trump Maloney, my brand new daughter. Yeah, so Trump's the new president again. And so we are going to...
Yeah, that's right. I just sent you a thing saying that Life is a Highway. Rascal Flatts of Life is a Highway fame are going to be performing at the Commander-in-Chief Ball.
Oh, that's why you sent it to me.
Yeah,
well, this is, now this is interesting. Famously, in his first inauguration, nobody would play because the temperature of the nation was so different, particularly in the arts. I remember he got that one band, the band that did Kryptonite. My name is Superman. Well, they called maybe they're holding my hand. They were the only band that would play at his inauguration because, and I guess probably some country artists as well, because otherwise it was just liberal commercial suicide. If you like U2 was not going to perform at the inauguration. But that's interesting. It's interesting that you say that Rascal Flatts are going to play, because that also sounds like that suggests that other people still aren't playing. But the landscape is so different. I mean, I'm sure there are some.
Billy Ray Cyrus is playing, for example. Now he's a country act, but he's somebody who might have a few years ago gone on, this is a bit too hot and I don't want to lose my, fan base who might be a bit sus on Trump. Billy Ray Cyrus, Nelly, I'm pretty sure is performing.
Is that true?
It's true, yeah. Now it's not all at the inauguration, but there's a kind of cluster of events that are around the inauguration that they've booked a bunch of acts to play at. Yeah, let me have a look. Where did I get that thing about?
The Hill says, who's performing at the Trump inauguration? We've got Carrie Underwood. I don't know a lot about Carrie Underwood. The Village People. How many of them are still alive? Lee Greenwood. I don't know who that is. Christopher Macchio. Macchio. Kid Rock and Billy Ray Cyrus. They're old Trump heads.
Christopher
Jason
Macchio is a classical tenor. There you go.
Oh, Jason Aldean and Rascal Flatts.
St. Louis rapper Nelly will perform at the Liberty Ball. Kid Rock, of course, as you said.
And then Beyonce, because she's just
Jason
all about the bag.
Aldean, do you know who he is? Yeah, and Beyonce.
No idea. Beyonce, right. Eminem, they've all just done a 180 because Trump's just offered them money. That'd be so good if he just offered Beyonce such an eye-watering amount of money just as the ultimate troll that he's like, Beyonce, I'll give you $50 million if you perform it. And then she just did it. And then everybody just saw what really is happening in Hollywood, how none of them have any principles. Poor old Eminem. Eminem found himself in a bit of a weird position because he performed at Kamala's thing.
Oh, right.
And I think a lot of people were like, why are you just being really why are you in the system, Marshall?
Yeah.
We thought you were at the very least, could you kind of stay out of this or make a bit more of an interesting comment rather than just coming out and blindly saying, who's awesome, Kamala Harris and the Democrats. Everybody's
boring Democrat establishment, Kamala Harris. That is a lot of mum's spaghetti on that proverbial shirt of his.
John, speaking of mom's biscotti, you are going to be cleaning up a lot of messes because last week you didn't have a daughter, and this week you've got a daughter. What do you think about? What do you think about? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Look, it's great.
First of all, can you tell us? Can you give us? Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? Have you seen your daughter? Have you heard about your daughter? Can you tell us? Can you give us a little bit of the basic deets? Where were you? What topping was on the Domino's pizza that you were scarfing when you got the news? Because that's how I'm always able to get to have you color a story for me, because I just always say, John, what topping was on the Domino's pizza you were eating when
the second tower fell?
I think when the second tower fell, it was meat lovers. I think when I had my daughter, I think I had a mouthful of ham and pineapple.
Yeah, it is amazing because I've been pinching myself over the last week about the fact that you kind of go, okay, this time last week, like for example, on Tuesday last week, a week and a half ago now, I was kind of out with some friends from the UK and, carrying on like a much
good old
man,
sort.
like a good sort, like a regular knockabout bloke, came home a bit pissed. And then suddenly you're like, wow, that was last week. And now here I am.
Yeah.
Like learning how to wipe the right way to clean the poo off this baby's tiny, beautiful bottom. And kind of feeling dazed and exhausted and happy. But, it's pretty wild. So basically what happened was it was very kind of filmic, and I always had this in my head right from when I was a kid that pregnancies began with a kind of dramatic breaking of the waters. That's the kind of image. Oh, my water broke. Apparently that's quite rare, and usually it's a much more kind of protracted process for a lot of people, or it just doesn't necessarily start that way. But that's how it started for us. I was kind of in bed and Jacinta was like, my water broke, and then I had to then I got up and sort of
That's a great impression, by the way. That's a great
my God. And I said, okay, we got a go bag. We went in, and by the end of the day,
you had a go bag, of course. These are all the things I don't think
about. You got to have a little go bag. Although it took me a couple of minutes to find mine, but in classic fashion. But then, by the end of the day, we had a daughter, and I did. Even in the midst of all that, I did think about the podcast briefly because, basically, what happened was she had a C-section, and basically they get the partner of the person, if they have one, to come down and, to kind of be in the room with them, which is a pretty incredible experience, as you can imagine. But before all that, they needed to kind of prep Jacinta for surgery, etc., give her an injection and check various things and blah, blah, blah. And because there's a lot of like doctors milling around, it's an operating theater, they were like, can you just wait here until we're ready to roll? So I was like, okay, no worries. And I'm sitting in this little kind of ante room outside the theater. And then I get these WhatsApp messages coming through just about nothing, because nobody knows yet. Just WhatsApp messages, people talking about their day. And I sort of instinctively picked up my phone. I just started reading them. And then I thought, hang on, I can't be phubbing my own child's
Then you're
birth.
just like, oh, what's happening on TikTok?
Exactly. I had this moment where my brain wanted to be like, yeah, just open Instagram and have a play around.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of consciously go, no, this is a significant life moment. I need to just sit with this and be deliberately bored. So, and I was like really quite ashamed of myself because I'm sitting in this room going like, fucking, like my phone's in my pocket. I can't.
You've got your phone in your hand, and the nurse is tugging on your arm, and you're going, but it's gonna get banned.
Yeah, exactly. I'll still have a baby when TikTok's gone.
Banned.
That's right.
And so then you went in
Skibbity toilet.
There's nothing but Skibbity toilet playlist with your Skibbity toilet t-shirt on in the hospital.
That's right.
Like, just about to have the most brain rottiest daughter in the world. You've got Coco Melon slippers and a Skibbity toilet t-shirt on.
And so that was great. And then I went into the ante room. And once you're in the operating theatre, my mind definitely shifted away from platforms that I could be browsing on. I can assure you of that. But that was.
And so they do they do a slice. I would have just lent over and just, I would have watched the slice, and I would have just leant over and just gone, they're slicing you now, sucked in. This looks absolutely rubbish. Sucked into you for this, I would have said. And then I just opened my phone again. This looks, I would never let anybody do this to me. This looks rubbish. He's literally cutting your stomach open. What the fuck?
I asked if they could do me. I said, can you just do a little lipo while we're in here? Surely some of this equipment will sort that out. And yeah, so I was watching it. It's pretty amazing. I mean, as you can imagine, I would hope it would be amazing, and it is, because you can see Jacinta couldn't see much, but I could see a lot of what was happening. And then it just basically looks like any other operation. And then suddenly there's a tiny little human face.
And she starts crying straight away.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, that must be far out.
Also, because we didn't know the sex, so that was an exciting moment.
So rare.
And they made me tell Jacinta, and I almost second guessed. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know what that is, but I don't want to say the wrong thing.
I mean, this is the era where you could.
Yeah, that's right. I said, well, we'll know when.
What does that mean?
When they're ready to tell us.
I like the idea that just because it's 2025 as well, the doctors just like throw pink paint all over and confetti and shit just spews out of the doctors go, just for the gram, don't worry, we just do this as standard now, and just pink shit starts raining everywhere.
The doctors are definitely very conscious of the fact that you will want heaps of photos. So I handed my phone to one of the doctors who wasn't very busy. She was just kind of, there as an assistant, I imagine. And she did a really good job. She took like 40 photos, and because she was obviously like, I don't want to screw this up. So just
checking just like checking the white balance on they have a light in the room where she's just going, 5,500 Kelvin's pretty good. And
right. She had the Godox there shining in baby's face. And and then then I did a kind of cutting of the umbilical cord, and they took a photo of me doing that. And that the pediatrician was like, look in the camera, and I was like, man, this is pretty, like, you guys are pretty savvy. And obviously, like, that wouldn't have been, I mean, that's pretty new, I guess, isn't it? It wouldn't have been a photo-friendly environment.
No, you wouldn't have had
bulky Panasonics.
Yeah, absolutely not. You wouldn't have had. I think probably the first thing that started happening with cameras would have been probably camcorders, because I know there's certain people that really love to capture the whole thing, and I famously went down a pretty deep, dark YouTube rabbit hole some years ago where I realized that birthing videos were allowed on YouTube. And
are they really?
Yeah, like, unless they've changed the law, because it's like a non-sexual thing, because it's just like, well, people should be able to access this. And so I was on YouTube, and suddenly I was just like, there was just like people giving birth. So it goes from like, you can't see anything, you can see literally everything. And I was like fascinated with these like birthing videos. So I think, and also I was just fascinated to go like, that's an interesting thing to want to film, and then, I don't know, rewatch, edit down into like a really tight 5 minute, put some music over it.
Add some transitions.
It's a really, exactly.
Star wipes.
Kind of Mr. Beastified birthing video.
That's right. And then
like retention
have a nice
editing
thumbnail with the wife with a big grease tear.
YouTube
style greasy tear. I couldn't believe what I saw.
But That's a very good point. There must have, over time, it's just become normal for there to be cameras in like phones in the.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would
And
be
then-
funny if you brought out a massive like DSLR camera with a huge with like a bird watching lens on it.
Tripod. Just set your tripod up.
Seven
in the
cameras and a vision switcher just switching. You've paid a guy like vision switch between the 7 cameras live. We're live. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? Live streaming's got to be happening. If it hasn't happened yet, the Twitch birthing channel where everybody's just like live streaming their babies.
I mean,
they're
surely
having.
that's, if it hasn't happened, it's going to happen. There's no doubt. Anyway, that was good. And then, then you'll get the doctors in there having to sign a release because everything they're doing is going on social media, which would be pretty, like, you'd want to be on your toes if you were a doctor, because anyone filming you while you're operating, that's pretty sensitive to
and then
medical negligence claims.
How long were you in the hospital for before you could go home?
So, so that we were in there for 4 nights, and that first day was a great time. The baby's name is Ines Cecilia Lewin Maloney.
Beautiful.
Although that was in itself kind of an interesting, it remains an interesting bone of contention of sorts, because basically Jacinta and I, because we didn't know what the sex was, we had like a short list of names if it was a boy and a short list of names if it was a girl. And it was also a little bit early, so we were kind of not expecting to have to finalize the decision when Ines arrived. But when she was born, that was one of the names on the list, and we'd kind of discussed it, and for various reasons we both really liked it. And but I wouldn't say we definitely decided on it. But then when the doctor asked Jacinta if the baby had a name, she was kind of a bit doped up.
Yeah.
And she just said Ines, and I was like, all right, well, I guess that's it then. And then which is fine. I mean, that was my favorite. But then the other thing was we had she's just texting me now, probably to say, don't fucking air our dirty laundry on your podcast. But no, so the complication there was, there's kind of a number of different countries where that name is in use, and in each of those places they pronounce it slightly differently, and we hadn't really discussed what our preferred pronunciation is. And so you can say it more like Ines, which I also like, and that's got kind of actually the word Ines or the name Ines is also a Gaelic name, or there's kind of Ines, which is kind of more Spanish or Portuguese or French, and so kind of Romance languages. And we hadn't really finalized what we did, because Jacinta kind of jumped the gun slightly. Then we spent the kind of evening of the first day, and she was like obviously exhausted, and so was I. But in our kind of delirious state, I was using the little whiteboard in the hospital room to be like, okay, we can spell it this way, and this is associated with the name Agnes. We can spell it that way, and you would pronounce it more like this. And then eventually, we just thought, God, we're both too tired to sort this out. So at the moment, however anyone wants to pronounce it is fine, and we'll just kind of eventually maybe Ines or Ines will. I mean, she's probably listening. She's probably going to listen to this episode years from now.
Yeah,
and we just will leave it to her preference as to what way she likes it to be pronounced. But I tend to say more Ines. Anyway, she's great, and we spent the next few days in hospital learning how to, just kind of spend time with her, learning a bit about her, and doing. I did lots of what they call skin to skin, where I just like put her on my chest like a tiny little baby wombat, and she just scratches and sniffs and is very sweet. And then I learned how to get really efficient at changing nappies and figuring out. As I said to someone else, it feels in those first few days, it feels like having a really top of the line Tamagotchi, because your concerns are very much like, is it crying? Is it pooing? Is it weeing? Is it feeding? It's all very like basic. Like, it's probably done 3 poos today. Maybe we could go for 1 more tomorrow. Or maybe that's 1 too many poos.
To change it when the little flies are starting to gather around. Are there flies around her? That's when you have to, just using Tamagotchi logic to know when to change my daughter. The discussion you'll have to have very soon is what's going to be the personal Maloney Lewin rules around Innes appearing in social media. Because this is like as in, is it a free for all? Do you get to for the rest of time? Do you get to just upload thousands of photos of her to the cloud? Do you cover her face with emojis, which I've seen people do?
Yeah,
is there a blanket ban? How many hours of Skibbity Toilet is she allowed to watch per morning?
Yeah, I had this debate in the hospital because, like a day in, I was like, yeah, I get it. She's cute, but maybe just let's put on a bit of Coco Melon, just chill out. And we had this discussion quite early because of the podcast, because I was like saying, and just because of, social media, I was saying, should we put an announcement? Because you kind of go, some people I've told, like obviously you tell your family and then you kind of think, well, somebody I don't want anyone to find out who I would have preferred to have told personally.
Yeah.
And, you got kind of networks that are sort of expand off in different directions. So it's easy to kind of miss someone. So you start thinking, well, maybe just like a blanket announcement on social media is an easy way to do this. And then you have that question, should I put her photo up on social media? And I mean, I did in an Instagram story, so it was temporary.
With a great song choice.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was a direct reference to our trope of having a kind of like bodybuilding baby. Can't remember where we first got that.
It was ridiculous.
It's from that documentary about the bodybuilding boy.
Yeah, maybe it was one of the documentaries about the bodybuilding boy, and I said, imagine if you were on a first date or second date with a woman and you brought her home.
Yeah.
And you said, look, I'm getting along really well with you and I would like to keep seeing you, but it's important that you understand, you get to know me a bit better and you know my life. So would you please, and you'd be in there, by this stage she'd be with you in the kitchen and you'd say, would you please welcome to the date, my son, Jeremy? And then your like 6-year-old son would appear at the kitchen door and he would just be in like a bodybuilding thong all greased up with like a 6-pack abs and rock you like a hurricane, but the Scorpions would just start playing and he would just step up onto the kitchen table and start doing muscle poses with a little number pinned to his little bodybuilding Speedos, and it's just going, here I am, rock you like a hurricane, and you're just going, yeah, Jeremy, and would you please welcome to the date, my bodybuilding son Jeremy?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Here I am, rock you. So you played "Rock You Like a Hurricane."
I did
by Germany's highest ever selling band, Scorpions.
There you go. And so we had that kind of dilemma. And at least one person wrote to me after you put the podcast out last week and said, congratulations. And I went, oh, fuck. They got to the podcast before I got the announcement out to that person.
That was your mum.
That was fine. They said, oh, no, it's great that you have a podcast where you can distribute these bits of information about
It's true,
life.
yeah.
I said, that's true. And
it's better. It's better than if they just fucking heard it like 7th hand in 3 years or whatever.
Exactly. And then I realized. Then I thought, well, I don't really necessarily want to do a full post about it on Facebook, but what I'll do is I'll start a group on Facebook. And I only had my phone in the hospital, and Facebook is unbelievably unwieldy to use. So I set up this group. And it was just giving me, like, it wouldn't give me, or I couldn't work out how to get it to present to me my list of friends so that I could just add everyone to the group who I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
Instead, it was just giving me random lists of like suggested friends who were kind of subsets of my friends list. So I added like 30 people, and then I realized it was doing this. And then I just thought, oh, fuck this. So I just left the group. And then I started getting these messages saying, why have you put me in a group with 29 people I don't know? And I thought, this is a happy accident, because I didn't realize that you could even do that on Facebook. And I'm going to start doing that, particularly with maybe smaller groups of people, and particularly people who maybe I know they don't have a particularly good rapport.
Yeah.
I'll just
or they're a
them
bit
in
lonely.
Group. Yeah. And then
the loneliness John's, this is your way of addressing the loneliness epidemic. It's just.
And then I went back into the group and they said, this is true. And they said, what is this for? And I said, look, I've just created a new social form. Say whatever you want. We're just spontaneous socializing in here. And yeah, but it would be fun, just a form of trolling, to start a group, not have any explanation, leave the group, and then people are just kind of, it's like you've pulled people into a room and then run out of the room.
It's that reminds me of that thing that people do where they call two restaurants at the same time and just hold the phones together and and it's always Chinese restaurants in America for some reason. It's just always, and they're always just going, no, you called me. No, you called me. What do you want? What do you want? You called me. And it's just hilarity ensues. Well, anyway, I'm happy for you to have a daughter, John. If there's one thing, I think you got, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but daughter would have been my first choice as well. When you said daughter, I was like, that sounds like the one to get. Son would be fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's just something. I always tell Mum as well. I'm always like, Mum, I'm glad that you had Isabel, because she'd had two rambunctious boys. I was setting fire to things, and I know
my friends who have toddler boys. I think, yeah, that's very fun in small doses, but I don't know if I'd be that up for it. It's exhausting.
It's a lot. It's a different energy. It's a lot of sticks. Whenever I go to the park in Berlin, I'm always like, whenever I'm always just like, wow, there's something in boys that they want to grab sticks and just whack things real hard. And I couldn't find a single girl playing with a stick in the park, but I found a lot of young boys who were just sticking everything and having parents saying, stop hitting everything with sticks.
Exactly. Stop chasing that innocent animal with a stick. Yeah. I mean, look, if you could train them to collect firewood or kill small animals, that'd be very useful, but that's not really a skill. Those aren't really skills that we prize in Brunswick.
So I can't wait for more. It's the pivot we've been waiting for. It's like I said last week, it's the ways technology is changing culture and parenting and so much more. And or not so much more.
If you're listening in 2035, even though I've talked mostly about technological aspects of your birth, I did love it, and I love you, and it was really lovely. So all the best. All the best, Ines. If I'm still in your life in 10 years' time.
I do have one more very important announcement to make, which you may not have noticed, John, which is that my addition to the podcast is I also have a foam wind guard now for 2025. So I eventually, even though every part of my money saving, every fiber of my money saving being was screaming at me saying there's that piece of foam must cost fractions of a cent to make. I couldn't bear the plosives anymore. And so I shelled out, and I'm very happy. And I kept all week wanting to do this bit where I did the bit from Ice Cubes. Today was a good day where I was just going to go, had to stop at a red light, looking in the mirror, not a plosive in sight. And everything is all right. I got a beep from Kim. A shika fuck all night. I was doing that all week, going, looking in the mirror, not a plosive in sight. And everything is all right. Scooby, Scooby Doom, Scooby Doo Boom Boom Boom. Shop waking up in the morning, but I thank God, but I don't know what to do to put the bar. Such a great song. I can highly recommend. I think speaking of G-Funk era hip hop, I think actually that's just pre G-Funk era is Today Was a Good Day by Ice Cube. But I do believe that it samples a yacht rock era-esque track, and I can highly recommend the Yacht Rock documentary on HBO, which I called my family straight away after watching it. And I said, you guys, if you can access the Yacht Rock documentary that came out on HBO, you've got to check it out because it bridges my brother Ned's generation of musicians and the musicians that my parents loved. So it's like, it's just a perfect thing to watch. And I believe the entire Holland clan on my recommendation are going to be watching the HBO Yacht Rock documentary tomorrow night because it's going to have all the people they want. That's a doorbell ringing. We can end it. We can end it here, John. Then you can get the door if you want. Love you, man. Congratulations.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
And we can't wait to see you next week.
Can't wait to see you next week. The podcast.